Quick message before today's webinar. If you are involved with or know any events that require ticketing or admissions, we have a purpose-built platform just for ticket events. Like RunSignup, it's free to use and provides the same marketing and event day tools to help you put on a seamless event. For more information, visit TicketSignup.io. You can schedule a call there or just start creating your event for free today. Now on to the webinar.
Good afternoon and welcome to the RaceDay check-in webinar. We're gonna just hold for one moment to let folks join and catch up, but a couple quick housekeeping notes. First, we will send you a recording of this presentation afterwards, as well as the slides. Second, if you have any questions, they are available to you in the toolbar on the side there, if this is your first time coming to GoToMeeting. Also, if you do want to enable captions, there is a CC button. You may have to click on the 3-dot more menu for that button to appear. If you have any issues or questions about this, please use the question prompt. We have James Harris and Matt Avery on the back end there who will answer your questions as we go. Okay, today we are going to do an introduction to the RaceDay check-in app. RunSignup does a lot of really great things in the endurance industry, registration obviously, but I think one of the most important ones for every event is the RaceDay check-in app. It's just a great way to make sure that you have good, clean data, both for the participants, for you as the organizers, and also for the timer who is going to need those pieces of information to score your events. So today we're going to talk about the check-in app, how to set it up, how to configure it, what presets and configurations are, some best practices, including how to print QR codes and place them around, how to set things up in an easy manner, some troubleshooting, and then also talk about a couple of new features if you've joined us in these before and this is a refresher. And then we will open the floor for questions at the end. There is a lot of content in this presentation, so buckle up. Okay, the RaceDay check-in app. RaceDay check-in app is great for races of all sizes, from the smallest kids event to tens of thousands of participants in a massive marathon weekend. If you look at the stats on the right-hand side there, 43% of all races in 2024 use the RaceDay check-in app, and 50% of all participants on RunSignup were checked in using the app. That comes out to 5.4 million check-ins in 2024. So why is this useful? It expedites the check-in process for participants and volunteers. It stays in sync with all other data pieces that are in that RunSignup ecosystem. It easily processes check-ins and gets people moving quickly. And it also provides you as the organizer insight into how your race is doing for check-in, how packet pickup is going. It is a free tool that is available for all RunSignup registration customers. It's in the Apple and Android store for phones and tablets. There are a lot of features in this, and so there's some that we're not going to be able to cover today, just due to the volume of content that we can talk about with the check-in app. I know I can talk for much more than an hour about it, but a couple things, if you're curious about them, we do have content available for these, and you are welcome to reach out if you want to learn more. Some of those are check-in volunteers, medical check-in, label printing, using the check-in app as a results kiosk, and then interfacing with RaceDay scoring, which is our scoring software, to make automations in the data there. But the first stop here is actually not in the check-in app itself. It's in configuring the check-in app. Before you can use the check-in app or use your race in the check-in app, you need to enable a couple things on the RunSignup platform side. This is available in RaceDay Tools, RaceDay Check-in, mobile app. You need to set a shared password. It should be unique, and please, and I'll probably reiterate this at least one more time, do not use your RunSignup password when you're doing this. The password hint should probably be your actual password. It'll be easier to remember. It'll be easier for us on the support side to help you if you're having trouble there. Only people with RunSignup dashboard access, which full dashboard access, will be able to see that hint. So you don't really need to worry about that in terms of security. The other thing that you need to set up is the date and time range for which check-in will be available for your race. Best practice for this, make sure that you're enabling check-in before you're trying to start testing, and don't disable it until at least 30 minutes after the start of your race. Remember that you want to make sure that you're able to accommodate people who are showing up late to the line without having to kind of tie yourselves in knots to get them checked into the system. In the check-in app, once you've done that, you can download it either on Apple or Android, but then search for your race. If this is the first time that you've opened the check-in app, you will be prompted to change your device name. I highly recommend that you make sure that this is unique. If you have a fleet of tablets, identify them as tablet 1, tablet 2, tablet 3. If it's your personal phone, or if this is a volunteer's phone that's being set up for this, I would encourage you to have a unique identifier there. First name, last initial is a pretty good way to do that. So you'll be able to search for your race, click that, and then once you open it, you will be prompted to choose a preset or a configuration. Pardon me. More on that momentarily. So again, this password, this is what will allow you access to the race, and this is also for you to be reassured that no one's just going into your race and just opening it and checking people in randomly for you. So more use for setting a password that's secure, but also something that's easily shared with other volunteers. So remember, if the race does not show up, make sure that you have the date range set properly. If you are renewing a race on RunSignup, the date range for the check-in app carries over, and the year does not change on that. So you might need to go back in and make sure that, if it's 2025, that you don't have 2024 as the race year in there. Some features and usage once you've opened the check-in app, and this is available on the hamburger menu, or the three white lines on the upper left-hand corner there. Lock race, which allows you to limit the ability for users to do anything else other than the assigned check-in flow. Quick check-in, which is a very fast, simple way to check participants in, where you're scanning the registration ID and then a QR code on the bib. Check-in stats, so you can quickly see stats by race, by event, and by device. Queued edits, which are changes that have been made locally to your device but have not synced to RunSignup yet. This also is where you can find the edit history for the specific device. More on that at the end there. Force refresh. This updates race information. You only need to do this if something about the race changes. If something has been added, like an additional question, if there's been a new configuration added, you don't need to do this to update all of the participants. That sync happens automatically. If you do need to force the participants to update for some reason, you can drag down on the participant menu, or on the participant view. Volunteer check-in, again, we mentioned that earlier. You can easily switch between participant and volunteer check-in. Change configuration, so you can change between different configurations there. Get support, which sends a help ticket to RunSignup, which is monitored 7 days a week. And then back to races if you need to select a different race. So once you're in the race, the participants will sync. They will all download. If you have a really large race and your reception is going to be a little bit spotty, I would encourage you to make sure that you and your volunteers do this step prior to getting to the race site, just to save time and trouble there. At this time, you can configure your presets and configurations. So this is where we're going to kind of start talking about kind of the two most important concepts within the check-in app. And you can access these via the gear on the upper right-hand corner. Presets allow customizations in the check-in app for specific events, whether that's what information you want to display, how you display it, or how it behaves. Configurations are groupings of presets. So you might have one preset for the 5K and a different preset for the relay. But the configuration is how you'll map those specific presets to their events. And then you can also view who created a preset or configuration, who modified it last, and when that happened. Keep in mind that that name does come from the device name, and if you don't have your device name, it will be something generic. And there's more on that in a moment. So first up, we're going to talk about presets. And remember that the presets are how we're going to customize the check-in workflow for specific events, for the 5K, for the 10K, for the relay. So from the lookup view list, again, go to the gear icon in the upper right-hand corner, click the plus button in the event presets row and add a preset name. It's best to explain what the preset does, both for your own reference and just for future usability. We give you a default preset, which is nice. It's usable out of the box. It's missing some of the features that we'll talk about momentarily because it has to kind of apply to everything. The default preset is the default for a reason. However, it doesn't allow you to customize it. So if you're looking to do something different than that, you will need to create your own preset. And best practice is to do so. So remember, this can be used in one or many events. You can apply a preset to multiple events. You don't have to make one for every single event unless you want every event to behave differently. So you might use a name, something like skip bib assignment or show fundraiser info or relay, something descriptive there because you will need to map it in the configuration step. So now let's look through the settings and see what you might want to change there. So the check-in steps, when checking in a participant, what steps are going to be included in that process? Bib number assignment is probably the most important one of these. If you are doing dynamic bib assignment, you will want to make sure that bib assignment is required. The other options are skip or optional. Group bib assignment would be something like a relay team being assigned a bib for their team on the whole. And again, require skip or optional. Kind of a moot point if you're not doing group bibs. Waiver signing will allow you to add a step for users to sign any unsigned waivers. We support up to 3 waivers. So if you've added another waiver in the check-in flow, if something has changed and you need to collect that signature, this is where you can set that. Check-in related registrations, that will add a step at the end of check-in with suggested related registrations. They're connected to the registration that you're checking in either by, and you have the option of these, same team, same corporate team, same fundraising team, and same transaction. Just a note on the same transaction, that transaction has to be a credit card transaction. If they had a fully free registration or if they've been imported, they're not going to have any transaction information that ties them to anyone else. Just a note on that. It's also important to remember if you're using check-in related registrations that that you train your volunteers to not just blindly check everyone in. If you had a group of 30 people and you accidentally check them all in, it's going to be a little bit confusing for some of those people who might show up individually and not have had their packet given to the person who was checked in during that flow. Again, this is just the waiver signing option. As you can see, when you check in and a waiver hasn't been signed, the user will be prompted to show the participant the device, tablet, or phone, and have them save their waiver. That does go back to RunSignup and is associated with their profile there. It's a PDF that it's saved as. If you enable those related registrations, you can see when you hit save and continue that the other options will show up there. So you can see multiple participants show up, and you can either check in all of them or go through specific ones. If you're doing a turkey trot or something like that, this is a really useful way to speed things up because most people register as a group. Information displays in the presets, this is the next step down. If you'll notice or have opened this and are following along, you'll see that there's kind of these gray bars that are each of these kind of higher level options. We're in the second one here. That was check-in steps. This is information displays. Information displays are what data shows up when looking at the participant in an event using this preset. There's some that you're not able to turn off for pretty obvious reasons. But others you may or may not want to show. Maybe you have a custom question where you want to acknowledge someone as being, a founding member of this race. Or maybe they have a question about what they're going to be participating with a stroller, and you might need to give them a stroller bib in addition to things. So this is where you can customize what your volunteers and check-in staff will see when they look someone up. You can also, on the next step, allow information changes. Information changes kind of have two functions here. What actions can a user take on a participant? Can you change what event they're in? Can you change, clear their bib number? Can you update registration information? And then what fields will show up and edit participant information when you look up a participant does have some interaction here. So if a field is not selected for that information display step that we just talked about, it will not be able to be changed, even if it's selected and the information changes here. You do want to be very careful with this section because you don't necessarily want volunteers to change events. If you have a marathon that's a very different price point than the half marathon, you may want to control that. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the best practice section, but this is kind of the first of many times I'm also going to say the word test. When in doubt, test the registration flow. Test the check-in flow. Make sure that the experience for the participant is what you want, but also make sure that you're not giving too much control to people who are not directly responsible for maybe some of the financial pieces of your race. And then we also have the advanced options here. Prevent duplicate bibs in an event. This doesn't allow the user to assign the same bib number to more than one user within the event. It does allow the same bib to multiple people in two different events. More control on that will be covered momentarily. Validate bibs. If bib validation is enabled on RunSignup, this doesn't allow the app to assign bib numbers that are outside of the range that you set. I highly recommend setting bib validation for all of your events. So it's a great way to prevent, like if I was trying to assign bib 1001 and I typed 101 instead, and that wasn't in the allowed range, it would prompt me, hey, that's not in the range, and I would know, oh, I should double check that. So it is very useful there. And then use group name during checkout, just showing the RunSignup group team name during check-in instead. So again, like those are advanced options. I would very much encourage you, if you are doing dynamic bib assignment again, to prevent duplicate bibs and to validate bibs. The end goal of the check-in app with packet pickups is to just be doing bumper bowling. Anything we can do to get to the end of the lane is the goal here. So the more we can protect ourselves on either side there, the better. And then finally, once you save a preset, you'll be prompted to say whether or not you want this to be local or if you want to sync this. Local should be used if you don't want your preset customizations to apply to other devices. This is going to be completely local to your phone. Sync should be used if you want your preset customization to apply to all devices using your race. By and large, you're going to want to use sync. When you finish adding a preset, the app will ask if you'd like to create a new configuration with this preset applied to all events. If you select Don't Create, you will need to manually add or edit a configuration to apply the preset you just made to it. Presets that are not attached to configurations will have a little warning triangle next to them. So you can keep an eye out for those. By and large, at least the first time that you're creating a preset, you will want to create a configuration. You can always go back and edit these as well. If you do select Create Configuration, the app will create a new configuration that has the same name as your preset. So if you called it Test, or in this case, Testing as a preset, that's what the configuration would be named by default. Again, you can edit these. You can tap the current configuration name link and open up the event presets area to see your preset has been applied to all those events, indicated by the red arrows here. From here, you can change which presets for each event are being used. So this is where you might say, like, okay, the 5K and 10K are going to have this individual preset, but then again, the relay would have a team or a relay preset being used. And this leads us to configurations. If presets determine how the app is going to behave for a specific event, configurations determines which events are going to use which presets. So configurations are grouping of presets, and as well as a couple other customizations. As you can see, we're going to be navigating top down on these gray bars. So if you're following along, that is what you're going to see as these sections here. So from the configurations, again, you can navigate and add those by going to the gear menu, opening up race configurations and using the plus icon. This is also where you can edit existing ones. Again, we have a default configuration, which is the default presets collected that out of the box works. But again, if you want anything to behave differently, you will want to customize this and create your own. You can't customize the default. So from the, lost my place, I apologize. You can also tap on an existing configuration to edit it, or edit the current configuration that you're using at the bottom where you see it says test. So once you've opened a configuration, the first thing that you're going to do is update the event presets. If you're creating configuration, they're going to show as default. If you create a configuration from a preset, they will all show that preset. So this might not be the desired behavior, but it might be a way to effectively skip a couple clicks. This allows you to customize how that app works for each different scenario. All right. And then once you go into the next step, which is hidden events, you might want to decide not to show certain events. Why might you not want to have an event showing in the check-in flow? Maybe you have a person who is dedicated to like a VIP only check-in, and they're only checking in a single event. That would be a good way to do that. You might also want to hide virtual races in this space. Again, it's up to you, and this is another time where I would encourage you to test this and make sure that it's meeting your race's needs. It's a very flexible app, and every race is a little bit different, and every packet pickup subsequently is a little different there as well. So in the general options, we have the ability to clear the search, and that it means that searches are cleared out after navigating away from them by default. You may or may not want this. Some people like to not clear the search because they want to leave a last name search up there if they're not doing related registrations. Timeout on search, this will automatically reset the search after 5 seconds if no results were found from searching. Hide checked in participants. This means that the app will only show participants who have not yet been checked in. And then auto show camera on bib assignment. This is a really useful feature. When you have this enabled, once you enter the bib assignment step of the check-in flow, the camera automatically opens. If you are using QR codes on your bibs to dynamically assign them, this saves a little bit of time, but keep in mind a little bit of time times however many participants being checked in adds up to a pretty significant amount of time and potentially means less volunteers required at your packet pickup. Auto show camera in kiosk mode means that in the kiosk mode lookup method, the camera will either come up automatically or not. So a participant can scan their bib to get their results. Auto print after review. This ties back to what I mentioned earlier as another feature of label printing. If you do have label printing enabled after you've confirmed the check-in, it will print the label based on your settings there. This is also here where we can do the prevent duplicate bibs across events. So again, it's a best practice if you have unique ranges or if you don't have any duplicate bibs across your entire event, you should check this. It's just a nice preventative method from getting a bib double assigned. And then prevent check-ins after execute edits. We'll talk a little bit more about this again, but basically this locks down the app and prevents the users from changing or updating or checking in any more folks after X number of failed attempts to sync to RunSignup. If you are in an area with expected bad internet, you won't want this on. If you're in an area where that's not the case, you may want to have this set. And then the next option here is data displays. And this customizes the data that is shown on the participant list. The options are nothing, checked in status, bib number, age, or giveaway. And you can see on the right what some of this looks like. And then show team name will display the group or team name under the participant name if it's available. Again, this is something that you should test prior to packet pickup so that you know what your participants and your volunteers are going to experience. Exact match lookup determines how quickly the app will go to a result when it finds an exact match. Some people find it goes too quickly, maybe if they're searching for letters when they're typing. But again, personal preference on this. Fast, medium, and slow, or off are your options. And then lookup method. This determines what the participant list looks like to a user. So the standard is the list of names shown to the user for quick reference. This is generally the recommended mode and probably what you're going to spend most of the time in if you're in this webinar. However, kiosk mode, names are not shown at all in the list. This would be something if the app is being used by a participant or a spectator. So if you're using the kiosk mode, again, that we just mentioned a couple slides ago, the auto show camera in kiosk mode is going to be very effective. You'll notice that you can really only search by bib number here. Lookup result is a very important customization here. This determines what screen you land on after you look someone up. View participant is the default, and this is probably what you want. Again, if you're in this webinar or if you're using the CheckIn app for the first time. This brings you to the participant information as dictated by the presets. So what information is going to be displayed there. Another option is update registrant information. This is a screen where you can update the information, again, that you've determined on the preset level, things like giveaway selection, corral assignment, and so forth. Keep in mind that updating participant information is not checking them in. If you're looking to use the CheckIn app purely to check people in and assign them bib numbers, view participant is what you want. View results, this would be like a result kiosk. This brings you to that lookup. And then update medical information is a screen where you can check someone in or out of a medical tent. A side note, even though we're not going into the medical piece today, just be aware that medical information should not be input into this in terms of medical conditions and so forth. We're not lawyers, but we also don't want you to need to talk to one. So be mindful of HIPAA. So that's presets and configurations. Now let's talk a little bit about some best practices when using them. First, let's go back to what we were talking about with queued edits and what to do with kind of a spotty internet scenario. We do warn you in the app if you have a poor internet connection. We give you the yellow bar there that says poor internet connection detected. And we also tell you if we have no internet connection detected. CheckIn will still work. However, it's not going to be syncing with RunSignup. If you are in a space with kind of spotty internet, whenever we are able to, meaning whenever we have a good enough connection, we will push those updates to RunSignup. If you don't have an internet connection or if it's spotty, CheckIn still works, but you will not be able to do some of those things like preventing duplicates that are not on your device there. And you can set this up, this is the queued edit piece. You can set this up to prevent check-ins after X queued edits. It needs to be at least 3 to do that. That can be found under configurations, general options, prevent check-ins after X queued edits. And that's just a way where, like, if a device for some reason, whether it's completely lost signal, something's wrong with the device, that it's not pushing those back up to RunSignup, that it will stop working. And this is a really good prompt for that volunteer to go talk to someone and go make sure that things are working. Get them pushed up, get them back online, get them somewhere where they have service, or go look at the edit history and make those changes on a device that is working there. So it's a good indicator for someone that, hey, we should, go talk to someone in charge. Another best practice here is using QR codes. So QR codes, if you're not familiar with them, are kind of like a more data-rich barcode. You should not be using a barcode, by the way. barcodes kind of fail often enough that it's not going to be a good experience, and you might have a harder time or some lost data if you're using barcodes instead. QR codes are the preferred and are more or less the industry standard at this point. QR codes can be used in two different ways with the CheckIn app. One is to look up a participant by scanning the QR code that they have embedded in an email. If you're not familiar with it, I know I mentioned it on a later slide here, but Email V2 does have a replacement tag for the registration ID. And it's always good practice to send out an email race week or even the day that packet pickup is going to start, just reminding the participant packet pickup hours and including that QR code. It speeds everything up because they're not having to spell names out. They're not having to provide you with last name, and if it's a noisy environment, that can be difficult. It's much more efficient and it's much faster. The second thing that QR codes can be used for is to assign a bib number by scanning a bib that has a QR code with the bib number embedded in it. Most of you have probably experienced this or seen this in the meantime with the QR code on the bib. If you're using both of these, you can expect to reasonably check people in as little as 6 seconds. Again, that will depend a little bit on your workflow, but 6 seconds if someone has their QR code ready and you have a QR code on the bib is really efficient. So this workflow would be using the camera on the CheckIn app to scan their email QR code to look them up, and then scanning a bib number QR code to assign them a bib. So you can see that flow kind of here on the right. Camera scanning can be enabled manually on the participant list. You can see over here to look up a participant by their registration ID, or in the CheckIn step to assign the participant a bib number by the QR code. And again, remember that these are customizations. You can make it so that automatically shows up if auto show camera in bib assignment is on, or auto show camera in kiosk mode is on. Quick check-in mode can be used here. Pardon me. If all participants are going to have their email, that's a perfect world. So generally speaking, I would be prepared to train people on multiple options here. You can also always just tap that camera or input stuff manually. If someone doesn't have their email up right away, it might be fast to just search their name rather than have them open their email. Depending on how your packet pickup is set up, if you have someone at the venue who's able to prompt them to bring that email up ahead of them getting to the front of the line, that is a time saver as well. So this is what I mentioned, and mainly so that you can have this link here in the slide. Just a reminder that we will provide you the webinar recording and slides later today. But RunSignup does include the registration ID QR code in the default registration email. And again, we have pre-built emails that will include that replacement tag. So result kiosk QR code support. The app does recognize any URL that ends in hash number, where 123 in this scenario is the bib number of the participant, and it treats that just like it was the bib number. This means that you can print one QR code onto your bib that has dual purpose. It can be scanned during packet pickup to assign the bib number, and then participants can use it to scan later, either at a results kiosk or on their own phone to find the results. Best URL to use would probably be the result kiosk URL, which can be found under RaceDay Tools, Setup, Result Kiosk, and Link. But any URL works if it ends with #bib. So there's an example down there below. Some more best practices. If you only set up two things on this, it would be best to have two configurations and subsequent presets for everything. One would be the admin, the administrative, the staff, whatever you want to call it. And the other would be just the general volunteer one. If you separate these two workflows where the volunteers can only check participants in, but those who have the admin configuration set up can do things like clear bib numbers, switch events, and update information, you're going to have a much smoother packet pickup. This keeps participants moving. If someone's just checking in straightforward, that's great. They continue with that. The second that somebody needs something beyond that, whether that's help, whether that's updating information, whether that's doing a bib swap or something like that, they're taken out of the general line and moved to a trouble table or an admin or someone who is more trained or more responsible in the organization for those pieces. Just a best practice. People are okay with lines as long as those lines move. So keeping those lines moving is kind of the end goal here. Another best practice, if you're doing dynamic bib assignment, notate the name on the back of the bib. If you have shirts being picked up or giveaways being picked up at a different table, it's also good to mark what size they are if there's different sizes there. The example for this is say that we're doing a turkey trot and I'm going to pick up for myself and 3 other people. If you don't mark what name is assigned to what bib on the back of them, it's entirely possible that all 4 people will have a random bib there and everyone's results will suffer for that, or not, but it's not accurate. You should include the giveaway and shirt size on the detail and confirmation page. Again, we want to make sure that we're giving people the right pieces of merchandise. You should also include the registration ID. This is a quick link that shows up. You can see it on this image in blue. Clicking on that goes to RunSignup if they have dashboard access for any features that are not currently supported in the app. So again, having, like, I call the volunteer one use, because if people open the app for the first time, open this race for the first time in the app, they're prompted to choose a configuration. Use is a pretty good indicator that that's what they should tap if they don't have someone overseeing them signing in for that. So admins, at least 1 admin per shift, just to keep participants flowing. And then again, like, really limiting what that use configuration and preset can do. Some more best practices. Again, a reminder to set up bib validation and RunSignup. And also do a real check-in before packet pickup opens. It's really, there's no substitute for doing the real thing. So if you have a volunteer who's participating or who's picking up for a friend or family member after their volunteer shift, that's a great use case scenario to just train everyone in a real step. Inevitably at a packet pickup, someone's going to show up 15, 30, an hour early. Have one of those early birds get checked in early. They get what they want, and at the expense of them having to be patient as you train your volunteers with a real person. Watch your volunteers through their first couple of repetitions. Make sure that they are not developing a bad habit right out of the gate. Make sure that they're completing those check-ins. Make sure that if you're doing dynamic assignment, that they're putting the name on the bib, and make sure that they're using the right configuration. And also make sure that your check-in period is open. You can't test it if the period's not open. So that's another reason to be testing this yourself. And then when in doubt, if you're wondering about dynamic assignment, if you're wondering about some of this information that you need in there, talk to your timer. Our timers at RunSignup are our technology experts. We offer a badge for timer certification if they've completed the check-in certification and quiz. If you're wondering, you can do a timer search and just see if your timer is certified for that. They're also always welcome to take those courses on a self-serve basis. And then we're going to talk about some new features to the Check-in app. So again, if you've used this before, or maybe it's been a little while, maybe it's been since last season, we do have some updates to the Check-in app. If you are viewing this for the first time, well, you've already made it this far, but this is the new stuff. The first one is the ability to share a race or the app via QR code. Most of these are accessible via the hamburger menu or the little 3-bar menu in the upper left-hand corner. There's 3 options in the share race/app. The first is race. This QR code, if scanned by someone else's phone, brings that user to the race on the check-in or on the race list. It does not log them into the race. That password is still required for this piece, but it brings them right to that. It's a nice shorthand. If you have some materials for your volunteers as they show up, this is a really good way to do that. Apple tab brings up a QR code that brings volunteers to the app in the Apple App Store, and Android does the same in the Google Play Store. And again, just reiterating, this does not log them in. We do want to protect your race and your data, and we don't want people just logging in blindly. You should have some control over that. The next new piece here is the participant sort. So this is found in settings, my device settings. And my device settings are going to be specific to your device. Well, you can sync an updated preset or sync an updated configuration to all devices that are using them. My device settings remain local to the device that they're set on. Now, with the sorts, you can have two sorts. There's a primary and secondary sort. The secondary sort is not required if you want to just do a single one. Sort is set to ASC or ascending by default. You can switch that to descending. You can sort on event, last name, first name, team or group name, corporate team name, fundraiser name, and bib name. So if you do, for whatever reason, want to see things alphabetically, maybe just scrolling through, this is a great place to do that. Edit history is another new piece here. And this can be found in the hamburger menu, queued edits, edit history. Again, this is device specific. So these are the edits that have been made on this device. And by edit, I mean, is someone checked in? Did you assign a bib number? Did you update a piece of information? This shows the action and the registration ID that was acted upon. It does show the last 500 edits on a device, including bib assignments, check-ins, and event transfers. Support can see additional audit items if you send in a support ticket, which I'll cover in 1 second. The other thing that's new here is get help/support. Again, hamburger menu, get support. This sends edit history to the support desk, keeping in mind that this is device specific. This will not send edits for everyone's phones and tablets, just the device that the get support ticket was sent from. This does cut down on back and forth, and this allows support to better address your issues. So great option there, especially kind of if you've gotten yourself into a tight spot. One other piece that I haven't highlighted, and you might be wondering why we want to have all these unique device names. One of them is that check-in stats. If you are naming all your devices something unique, you'll be able to see how many people are being checked in per device in a 5-minute window. And this information actually also passes back to RunSignup. So where we saw originally you set the password, there's another tab there called check-in stats. And that's somewhere where you can see kind of how everything's going. You can see the check-in stats at a glance within the app, but the platform side version allows you to see this graph. And it's not useful for the current year as much as it's useful for the coming year to see, okay, maybe I had enough packet pickup volunteers on Friday, or gosh, no one got checked in after 7 p.m. Maybe we can shorten that shift. It's a great tool to analyze that. It is of no use to you if you don't have people naming their devices uniquely. Otherwise, it just looks like someone's really good at this. So that was a rather lengthy and information full session there. So I think we should open up the floor and see if there's any questions that have been asked during this, or if anyone has any questions that would like they'd like answered at this time. Avery, do we have anything on the back end?
So Soren, really great job, a lot of information. One thing I just wanted to kind of highlight for users that are kind of new to check-in, kind of getting into it, one of the first struggles that everybody always has is around this concept of preset and configuration. So as Soren has covered today, there's a ton of settings and a ton of different ways that you can configure this. And so when you think about these two words, just put it in your head right from the beginning. A preset is all about controlling what you can see and what you can change. So think about presets of being what am I going to see and when am I going to be able to change? And that's where you want to go when you want to control what you can see when you're checking in and what you can change on a given participant. And then a configuration is really controlling how the overall system is going to work. So am I going to be in kiosk mode? Am I going to be in check-in mode with the camera automatically showing? And so think about configurations as controlling, how this app is going to work and what mode it's going to work. And then also when I'm checking in someone for a given event, which preset is going to use. And so again, presets are about what I can see and what I can change. And then another thing to highlight again about the check-in app is for those new users that haven't used it, this is a complete system that can work offline. So we can work in an offline mode. So that is great because you might be working in some place where there might be some spotty cell conditions. You might be working in a conference center where you're in concrete and things aren't great. The Wi-Fi is not good. So one of the things that we've done is provide a lot of banners. And so you should be telling your volunteers, like, look out for banners. If it's telling you something's not syncing, if something's not going, that's an alarm. And so that's why he was talking about cute edits and all, but just know that we've done a lot to try to get that in their face so that when your volunteers are messing up or not having something go right, your timer's not going to have a bad day. So at the end of the day, we want to make sure all this information gets up so the timer can have a good day. And so definitely monitor your queued edits area, make sure that the volunteers understand if they see any kind of banners, that's a red light, and they should be trying to seek help out and kind of work through that. And just a couple of things to highlight for new users that are kind of coming into the system.
Yeah, I see a couple questions on the back end there. A lot of people are asking how to test this, if there's a test mode, for example. The best way to do that, in my opinion, is to add yourself into the registration somehow and test it on yourself. Have yourself either registered for the race, or if you just know someone that you can kind of work on. Keeping in mind that if you have an admin configuration, you can undo a lot of the stuff. You obviously don't want to switch events for someone who's actually registered for the race, which is another reason to kind of register yourself or manually input someone with a very obviously fake name. I'm a fan of using characters from the Mighty Ducks or the Sandlot, something like that. But testing it with the real environment is the best way to do that. I also saw someone asking if there's a good, quick video on this. Kevin Lai has a really good, like 6-minute long video about using the check-in app on YouTube that I recommend as part of the materials that you hand out to volunteers prior to packet pickup. Let's see.
Another discussion is around the whole add-ons or t-shirts and all. One scenario that Soren didn't really cover today, because again, today was more of an overview, especially for new users. We have done a lot of work to support a two-step process for what we call giveaways and so forth. And so you have bigger events where you're coming in, you're getting people checked in, getting their bibs, and you want to offload all the work where people are arguing about t-shirts and all that to another kind of flow. And so one of the things you might check out is some of the webinars done around printing and things that we've done. So you're checking them in, you're printing out labels about what they are be able to pick up at the next table and kind of handing that workflow off, putting it right on their bib, on the back of the bib and things like that. And then they go to another table and manage all the add-ons and stuff. So it's not necessarily a two-step process, but it is a two-step process as far as what the participant's experiencing and also how you're managing the flow in your event.
Mm-hmm. And, if you wanted to do like a very specific workaround on this, I wouldn't recommend this for a beginner user, but if you're familiar with the concept of internal questions, those are questions that are only seen by the organizers that are not participant facing. You can make internal questions that can be updated in the check-in app and can be seen in the check-in app. So you could make your own workflow there. Again, this goes back to the testing, and just to reiterate, if you're wanting to do testing, the best way to do this is just add yourself or add test person into your race and operate on them. Let's see, got some more questions coming in. How do I find my race in the check-in app? You can find your race in the check-in app. Again, going back to those first steps, you need to have a couple things first, which is on the RunSignup side. You need to have your password and date ranges set up, and then you'll be able to search for your race there. Someone's asking, how can you add a test person without a registration fee? In RunSignup, you have the ability under import participants to manually add someone. And you can also have them include less information on that to just kind of quickly add them there. But again, like, you probably are going to get the best results by having someone who's actually registered for this race and either just not fully completing their check-in or having the ability to clear that back out.
Can you address the whole thing about best practices in terms of volunteer ratio to participant race size and like your experiences around all that?
Yeah, generally speaking, it's going to be determined by how complex of a check-in you have. If you have a check-in process that includes just, hey, I'm dynamically assigning your bib and you're getting a t-shirt. You know, I think 4 or 5 people can handle probably 1,000 or so. It's going to also depend kind of on your parking situation, on your space situation, but generally speaking, you don't really want to have a ton of volunteers, because it's hard to do to get that many people, but it also really spreads the space out and can make it a little bit more difficult. I don't have a great ratio, James. I think you might have a ratio number on it. In my experience, 3 or 4 people can successfully check in 1,000 people race morning by themselves, and that includes you know, just dynamic assignment. Keeping in mind that if you're doing dynamic assignment, it is just like next person up there, which means that you're not having to have a setup where you have, you know, one line might be A through L and the next one M through Z, and one line might be very long, but there's no way for them to go over to the other one. It's going to be a little bit dependent on some pieces like that. If you have multiple deliverables, store items and things like that, you will probably need more volunteers because it's going to be a slower check-in process. It's pretty variable on that. Again, this is another reason to maybe overstaff year 1 and look at those check-in stats and say, okay, maybe I can pare this down a little bit year 2. What you're looking for in the check-in stats is a plateaued line. If you have a plateaued line that's, you know, higher up, that means that as many people are being checked in a 5-minute window as you really have capacity for. And if you have a plateaued line for more than, say, 15 minutes, you'd probably want to make sure that you have at least one more volunteer at that point. If you're seeing a lot of variability and spikes there, that means that you have a lot of ebb and flow in lines. And it probably means that you can go down at least one volunteer the next year. I did see someone ask if this only works for dynamic bib assignment. Absolutely not. It's a great tool that makes dynamic bib assignment much less scary for people. I actually personally find that I have better data when I do dynamic bib assignment than when I pre-assign. But you can pre-assign, you can dynamically assign, you can do a mix of both. And you can actually do, if you're doing kids race stuff where they don't get a bib or everyone gets bib 2,000, again, that goes back to the ability to skip the bib assignment step for a specific event.
We got a lot of questions about people asking, what's the best practice for actually testing? What does it mean to test? Is there a button I can click to test things? And I just wanted to, I think, clarify a little bit. When I think of testing, is really you as a race director or volunteer coordinator walking through the process as if you are going to be a volunteer. So you can see like, oh, well, I don't see t-shirt sizes, but I know I'm going to be passing out t-shirts. That's a testing protocol. It's just saying, oh, well, I know I need to actually show this information. So just walk through the process, go and check some people in and see if the data is available that you want to see. And if not, adjust your presets and your configurations to fit. So it's more just taking on that role of volunteer and making sure that they have all of the data that they need in order to accomplish what you're trying to get them to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, like this should all be done well in advance of packet pickup day so that you're not having to scramble on those pieces. I see a question, can you have multiple people with the check-in app? Yes. Again, like you can have multiple people with the check-in app. That's kind of the idea there. I'm not sure what the multiple lines part means. This is as scalable as you want it to be. The nice thing is that if you have tablets that you want to be using, great, but this is something that I found is very user-friendly. A lot of our packet pickup volunteers tend to be maybe more elderly, and they're much more comfortable with their own cellular devices than they are with a laptop or something else like that. Someone asked, how does this work for day of registration? Because this is completely tied into the whole RunSignup ecosystem, if I register while I'm in line for packet pickup, I will be on that device there. If I register right away, the device is on a sync cycle, they can just, again, pull down that list of names and it will refresh. So this is kind of all tied to the same database. The RunSignup database is alive in this. The exception, of course, would be if your device doesn't have internet. But same day registration, you would have no different experience than someone who registered 3 months ago with the CheckIn app. Let's see.
We do support store orders now. So if you are doing stores and you're adding store purchases, those will show. And that's something that was available as you're checking people in addition to the add-ons.
I saw someone say, where and how do I select dynamic bib assignment? Dynamic bib assignment would occur if there's no bib assigned when you're checking someone in. So dynamic bib assignment just is under the assumption that if there's a blank for the bib, that would be assigned dynamically. You would want to make sure that you're not automatically assigning a bib at the time of registration. That would kind of negate that. I did see an interesting question here. Is there any way to mark who picked up a bib? No, there's not. That kind of comes down to your pre-race messaging and how you communicate with folks there. We can indicate, when a bib was picked up. We can indicate that a person was checked in. We can indicate that some of these things have been done, but we don't have that out of the box. We are coming up near the end here. I would say just if you have further questions on this, either talk to your account manager or also feel free to reach out to info@runsignup.com. All right. So just one last reminder, if we didn't get to your question, please reach out to those avenues to contact us. It seems like some of these questions might be a little bit more one-on-one, but we will send you a recording of this as well as the slides from the webinar later today.
And again, info@runsignup.com is your friend. info@runsignup.com.
All right. Thanks, everybody.